this evening. My drink of choice tonight is a Tesco ginger ale, nothing sexy. It's what's left over from my daughter's birthday parties this week. But interestingly, the glass is a Tourtel plastic glass. When we go on holiday to France and Spain, we find that their alcohol-free selection is absolutely incredible. You can go to a bog standard supermarket in a small town on the coast and find all manner of lovely fruit infused alcohol beers, and this is one of them, Tourtel, and I got this on eBay, this little plastic glass which I love. So this is a Tesco diet ginger ale. Cheers, iechyd da. As I said, I'm all kitted out in my football kit. Every time on a Sunday evening I play six-a-side football. Luckily this evening the kick-off is at 8 o'clock, so I'll be scarpering as soon as I'm finished here. As I was preparing my notes just earlier, I was scanning through Club Soda, looking at some of the posts, looking for a bit of inspiration and background and context. And reading a couple of your posts, it really did focus my mind, because it's clear that for some of you, Christmas is a really difficult time for different reasons. And that's something I can really identify with. When Laura offered the opportunity for me to do a webinar, I was really, you know, I think she was lining up speakers from September through to December, and I was really keen to do something around Christmas time, because Christmas is something which has always triggered very, very strong emotions in me. In years gone by, often, you know, start crying uncontrollably for no apparent reason. It's only in the last year or two where I've really had to look seriously at you know, things like mental health and emotional well-being in quite a deep way, that I've started to get a handle on why that was. Christmas is an incredibly powerful time of year, and so I was really keen to try and chip in to Club Soda at this time of year. And I'm going to start with something perhaps not particularly festive. I'm going to start on the theme of mental health. And I'm sorry if that's a bit dry or a bit boring or a bit unfestive, but I'm not going to apologise for it. I'm very lucky. I work and have worked for the last year and a half for a national charity as a caseworker, so taking in calls for advice and information from members of the public. You know, and anything can come in on any given day. You have to keep on your toes. One of the good things of that job is that I've done an awful lot of training and professional development, things like mediation and conciliation and facilitation, those sorts of things. And you know, one of the most powerful courses that I've done is on what we call mental health first aid, and that is a course I think they originated in Australia, but it's been given the backing of Welsh Government here in Wales, and it's being dispersed throughout the voluntary sector and elsewhere. It's something I'd strongly recommend that everyone looks up online, mental health first aid. And indeed, I'm strongly of the persuasion that this, or if you like, a condensed form of this course should be made available to everyone at about age 15, 16 at secondary school, because some of the things are so obvious. You know, I hadn't realised until I did that course. But the first thing that the tutor said in that course, when I turned up, was everybody has a mental health. I'm just wondering if somebody can flash a little thumb or a heart or something to make sure that you can hear. I can see that there's 14 people watching, but not getting a massive deal of interaction. So it'd be nice if somebody can just do a little thumbs up or something. Should I turn it that way? Should I press that? No. If somebody can check me a little thumbs up or a heart or something, that would help. Anyway, the first sentence that the tutor said in this training was, everybody has a mental health. And that goes for me, it goes for everybody that's watching here. Just going to... No, that's the wrong one. Just looking for a bit of sign that people are actually watching. No. Okay, I'm going to leave it then. I can't see anybody interacting. That's the problem. I wonder if my settings have gone or something. Anyway, I'm going to leave it. Everybody has a mental health. We all have a responsibility to look after our mental health and to stay positive. We don't all have mental health conditions such as bipolar or post-traumatic stress disorder or things like that, but we do all have the responsibility to protect our emotional well-being. And that's my starting point. And the need to... Good, thank you, Laura, that's great. Thanks for the messenger message. Okay, I'm feeling a bit more confident now. The need to develop good neural pathways. Now, I don't understand all of that, but it's the paths in the brain that send you messages and reinforce the way that you act. And it's our responsibility to try and develop good neural pathways, good ways of thinking about our situations. Key to that is sleep. Also key is exercise, because they stimulate the positive chemicals in the brain that help that positivity. And I would add to that, find hobbies, find the thing that you love, find things that you love in life, whatever that is or whoever that may be, and stick to it like glue. It's only very recently I've sort of rediscovered busking, my love of playing the harp and going out busking, that is something that really makes me tick. Going back to one of Laura's old webinars on rediscovering things that you used to love, that was a very powerful webinar about a year ago now, and it's something that I've taken to heart. So stimulating good positive neural pathways. We all have a mental health, we all need to protect it. But looking at some of your posts this evening, it's clear that we're all, to a greater or lesser extent struggling at this time of year. And just before I started, I made a little list of things that are in my life right now as I prepare this webinar. Now, I know a lot of people look up to people who do the webinars as an inspiration or I've been sober quite a long time, 2.5 years, and people think, oh my God, how does he do it? He must be amazing. Well, no, I'm not. If I'm looking at the stuff that's in my life, my daughter's got a birthday. She's had 2 parties. She's also been ill. 10 minutes before I came on air, she was crying with a sore throat. I had to sort her out. The school have been very demanding in terms of the Christmas stuff that both of my children are doing. I've been running around like a headless chicken this week, sorting out Christmas carol concerts, Christmas jumpers. It's been own clothes day for them on different days. All of that school stuff. Anyone with children will recognise that. I sort of fell out with my mum this week as a consequence of one of those birthday parties. My wife is ill. She's got a very difficult chest condition. I've got work, as I said, I've got quite a demanding job, sometimes as a 9 till 5 caseworker, often actually dealing with people who are in a state of anxiety or poor mental health, and having to step into their crisis situations, which perhaps explains a bit why I've been a bit less active in Club Soda the last year or so. I've got that job from 9 till 5, then I've got the children, 2 hours in the evening. So perhaps I've had to take a little bit of a back seat. So the pressure is always there. I'm feeling pretty happy, pretty positive, but a hell of a lot of pressure. Then just this weekend, as Laura will know, this saga that we've had of trying to do this pre-recorded video, we've tried 2 or 3 different ways of trying to upload that video. We've sort of given up and packed it in. That was actually causing me a bit of stress this morning. I was listening to, there's a Christmas carol on in the background, and I was nearly feeling a little bit weepy myself. So that's just, you know, an average week for me in the run up to doing this webinar. You know, I'm not Superman. I've felt really crap this week, actually, and we all feel crap. Which brings me on to the next phase of the talk, if you like, having dealt with mental health and our everyday situations. And then we come on to Christmas. So we bring all of that stuff, you know, because you've all got your equivalents of what I've been through this week. And then Christmas brings an extra layer of these, if you like, these neural pathways, these thoughts and feelings that we all go through. And if I can sort of paraphrase the Charles Dickens novel, you know, you've got Christmas past, Christmas present, and Christmas future. The Christmas past for me is very, very powerful, and perhaps explains why I've struggled with emotions. I grew up in a very pretty, you know, picture box part of England in Leicestershire. And several of those early childhoods were, you know, white Christmases, like the scene off a Christmas card, very romantic. You know, my mother was the only Welsh woman in the village, so naturally she led the church choir in Leicester. So we'd have the you know, the carols on the village green, the sherry and mince pies with the vicar afterwards. When my dad would be on the sherry, I'd probably be on something a little less strong at age 8. Very romantic, very idealistic, and perfect Christmas memories. And actually it's been snowing in Leicestershire this weekend, and been seeing some of those, you know, snow covered you know, country parks and things that we've got around there, and it brought back those memories so strongly. And I'm sure that you all have your own childhood memories of Christmas. You know, Christmas is a constant, it's always there, it's the same traditions every year. So going back to mental health, it sort of triggers those memories again, because Christmas is always there on 25th of December. You can't really escape it. And so it is very, very powerful, and I think it links into what I was going on about in terms of mental health. Then, you know, back to my own story, my teenage Christmases were incredibly painful as my mum and dad's relationship deteriorated. So, you know, from about the age of about 13 through to 18, my Christmases were very memorable for very different reasons. They were quite scary sometimes, quite upsetting, you know, in a formative part of my life. And in complete contrast to those sort of romantic, idealistic Christmases that I'd had just a few years earlier. So I think the contrast between those two phases, if you like, in my life, you know, I've left a little bit of a rupture and something which I have struggled with at Christmas and until very recently. And again, I'm sure you've got your own stories to tell. And then as we move into adulthood, you know, you've got your relationships, perhaps ex-relationships, your family considerations. Some of you then move on and have children, and children, as I've just described, bring their own set of work, if you like, to Christmas, and their own challenges and their own demands. No, you know, no matter how lovely and kind and loving your children are, as mine are, I'm, you know, blessed with two beautiful children, but you know, it's still demanding. Even just in terms of the hours that you have to work. So you've got all of that, you know, the memories from Christmas past, the reality of Christmas present, and then casting an eye through to the future. You know, you might have financial things that are on hold, you know, work situations that are on hold, you know, you've got your Christmas deadlines, and then you'll be moving into a new phase in January. You know, it's no surprise that a lot of, you know, January and February is the record period for divorces and breakups and marriage guidance, etc. You know, things are put on hold, and then you deal with them in January. For those of you who are self-employed, you've got your tax returns to think about, possibly in January. So you've got the stuff, you know, in the big bad world after Christmas to think of as well. So you've got your Christmas past, your Christmas present, and whatever's going on in your life. And coming back to that point, Christmas is there with all the stuff, the music and the trimmings and the the shopping and the work, etc. So it's an incredibly powerful time. Just realised I was in a room which is slightly weaker broadband connection, wireless connection. This is slightly better. The Advent in front of the Christmas tree now. Actually, where is it? There you go. My children decorated about an hour ago. Advent is about preparing for, well, in the Christian sense, the coming of Christ. But, in the modern Christmas, that has sort of been distorted a little bit into preparing for excess, shopping, work, parties, families, eating. And, this is Club Soda, so clearly for many of us, or many of you, there'll be that link with alcohol to consider as well. So on top of your everyday mental health, which I've discussed, you've got the stuff about Christmas, Christmas past, Christmas present, and then the future, and then you've got your alcohol situation to consider as well. So the key Christmas carol I wanted to one thing I was thinking of doing was actually getting out the harp and playing a little bit of music, but that fell flat. That idea fell flat. The Christmas carol I want to quote, "O little town of Bethlehem, the hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight." All of these things which are pressing on our lives, all our worries, all our personal situations, they all come together, almost like a big multiple, traffic collision. At Christmas time, and it's our job to try and think about that and sort it out. The hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight. Now, as some of you will know, I'm not particularly strong on strategies around alcohol. My interest, I think, is more in mental health, about life. About the things that go on around the use of alcohol. And my situation when I quit, was it 2 years, 8 months ago now, was, my problem was when I'd get occasionally drunk and in danger of saying or doing something daft in that moment. And it was a very clear and very easy decision for me to make to quit alcohol. It was very sudden. Overnight and unexpected, but once I'd made that decision, it made sense, and it's just something that's clicked. So there are going to be, and I haven't had to struggle with that craving thing. So there's, many other people in Club Soda who will be able to give you better advice and guidance on that. But one thing that I do specialise in fact, my PhD was in identity. It was actually looking at politics, Welsh national identity in a political context. And in the same way, Christmas is very similar to a national identity. It's a construct. It's something that's been invented by people over time. I mean, let's take Brexit for a minute. Sorry to introduce that. I suppose it's inevitable. Being British in London, in a multicultural area, lots of social mobility, lots of young people, is very different to being British on the coast of Lincolnshire when you're 85 years old. You perhaps remember the Second World War, and remember when people went down the coal mines and Britain manufactured its own goods for the world market. Two very different experiences of Britishness. Both of them equally valid. Nobody can say that one is right, one is wrong. British identity or Welsh identity or whatever identity, there are no rules. These are constructs. They are made by people. And similarly, Christmas is an identity. If we look at the pagan celebrations in midwinter, then the Christian church, and then the Victorian Christmas, and then this modern commercial Christmas, which perhaps started in the 1970s, and it's morphed into something horrible now with Black Friday and everything else. Christmas is something that has been invented. And my challenge to you is to invent your own Christmas. You know, change your routines. Let's say that you go to Uncle Bob and Auntie Kathy on Boxing Day. You have your lunch, you get drunk, and there's a row at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's happened for the last 16 years. Well, let's change that around. Let's go on, you know, the 28th of December, or go on the 3rd of January. And instead of going round for the full turkey and trimmings, find a find a nice cafe, find a nice restaurant where you can get tea and biscuits, coffee and biscuits at 11 o'clock, or maybe sandwiches for lunch. You know, try something different. Use the countryside. Get out into the countryside. Use the natural. You know, if you live in London, then get on the tube, go to Cockfosters or Ongar or Barnet or wherever it is. Do something completely different. Get out of the house, change that routine. Works parties are coming up. I've seen somebody posting about works parties, and somebody, Sarah, I think it was her name, said, no, I've planned ahead. I'm leaving at midnight. I'm not going on till 3, 4 in the morning as we used to do. This is what Christmas means to me now. It's family, safeguarding the interests of my family, my friends, and my relationships, and my reputation at work. You have got, sobriety for me. It's all about identity and defining your own life, taking control of your own emotions and your thoughts and your feelings. And at Christmas time, as I've said, it's a particularly powerful time of year, and so you have to work doubly hard to get control of those emotions, thoughts and feelings, and turn that ship around. Again, it can be like turning the Titanic round. It's taken me about 2.5 years, I think, to get to quite a confident position and where I am. So you have to work doubly hard at Christmas. Analyze it. I follow a lot of mindfulness stuff and positive thinking stuff on Twitter, etc. And one of them said, if you're not obsessed with your own life, then you should be. You need to write your lists or your mind maps, or whatever it is, to chart down every single thing that is connected with your sobriety, all the benefits, or even it's just a neutral thing. One of the things on my mind map is those social occasions where I've stayed sober, and I know that it's protected me. Perhaps it wasn't a particularly spectacular occasion, might have been a bit dull, a bit boring. I don't care. It's kept me safe, and that in itself is a foundation stone for your other adventures then. And sometimes it is in football terms, hanging out for that 0-0 draw, keeping that unbeaten run going. It's dull. Perhaps you don't need to shout about it from the rooftops on Club Sober, but if it gets you through another situation, ready to face life and the real challenges that you do have, then it's worth it. Now, I apologise that I've had a few technical difficulties completely outside of my control. I've got a very strong Wi-Fi connection here, so I don't know what's gone wrong there. So apologies for that. I hope, Laura, you might be able to stitch the two bits of this presentation together. I hope that those thoughts have been handy. Not much, as I said, about alcohol per se, but about Christmas and identity and emotions. Hopefully it's given you some food for thought. I think we all go through it in our different ways, in our different contexts. By the way, I'm more than happy to, if anyone wants to post underneath the presentation, I have to dash now, but I'm more than willing to engage with any individual who wants to take up a conversation or a chat privately with me on the sorts of issues I've raised. More than happy to do that afterwards. So I'm going to wish you a Nadolig Carwyn a blwyddyn newydd dda from Wales, a Merry Christmas and a